Hi, everybody. It's Mr. Gawreluk here, and I want to talk to you today about our science lesson, which has to do with mountains. So, I'm going to present some information for you today, and hopefully, that you find it interesting and helps make you think of some questions that you'd like to ask your teacher about mountains. First of all, what is a mountain? I mean, it's something that it's kind of a duh question when you think about it, but it actually makes me think of a joke. Why are mountains so funny? Because they are hilarious. Hilarious. Okay, that wasn't very good, but let's move on. Mountains are areas of land that are much higher than the land around them. That's kind of the duh part. They're steep. They're high. They have to at least be a certain amount of. They have to at least be 2,000 feet, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And a lot of times it's weird, but they're found in groups, and we call those mountain ranges. What features do you think are needed for a landform to be classified as a mountain? Now, you can have some high areas in different parts of the world, and you might say, "Oh, is that a mountain or is that a hill?" Well, here's another thing that makes me think of a joke. Why don't mountains catch colds? They wear snow caps. I know you like that one. Features of a mountain. So the top of a mountain, we've talked about, it's a peak. And those peaks are measured from the mountain to the ocean's surface. So they're measured, if you ever heard of the measurement of sea level, like we're in Minnesota right now, and our land is about 800 to 900 feet above sea level, although parts of Minnesota can be closer to even 2,000 feet above sea level. But if you lived in a place like Colorado, and particularly Denver, they call that city the Mile High City. It's because they're over 5,000 feet above sea level. A mile is equal to 5,280 feet, and much of Denver is higher than that, above sea level. So, and they also have the Rocky Mountains right nearby. So, usually to be classified as a mountain, the landform must be over 2,000 feet high. And in Minnesota, we have just a couple of these land features. And I'm not even sure they're quite 2,000 feet. They might be just a little bit over, a little bit under, but it has to be right around that 2,000 feet high. What do you call a mountain of kittens? A meowton. I knew you'd hate that one. Anyway, how do you think mountains are formed? Well, there's a couple different ways that mountains can be formed. Some mountain ranges were formed when pieces of the Earth's crust, and we've talked a little bit about plate tectonics. There's different plates on the Earth's surface, and they're kind of always moving around. But it's when pieces of Earth's crust, called plate tectonics or tectonic plates, smash against each other. Now, it doesn't happen abruptly. It happens over time. So it's a very slow smash. It's like watching, what's that movie with the sloths in it that came out a couple years ago where it's sitting there talking real slow and annoying. So think of plate tectonics working like sloths. They work slowly. It takes time. Pieces of land smashing against each other. It's not this violent explosion or this eruption of things, although there could be an eruption, and we'll talk about that. This mountain range that you see pictured is called the Himalayas. They say it was formed 55 million years ago, although none of us were there. But 55 million years ago, you had plates smashing against each other and earth crust rising, and it includes the tallest mountain in the world called Mount Everest. One thing about this is that Mount Everest has been measured to be 29,032 feet above sea level, and they say it's still growing. Now, how could it possibly still be growing when you have water and you have wind acting upon this? Shouldn't it be shrinking based on erosion? Well, what that tells us is that those plates are still smashing against one another, still creating that uprise, that uplift in the land. So the Earth isn't done smashing its parts against one another in very slow motion. All right, this joke comes to you from, who was it that wanted me to tell? I think it was Kendra. It might have been Kendra, or it could have been, was it Rowan, or was it maybe Stella? Stella. This joke comes to us from Stella. And thank you, Stella, for this. What is a cow's favorite drink? Mountain Moo. Mountain Moo. See, that's a kind of a mountain joke. Oh boy. Hey, your homework today, after this is done and you learn all about mountains, you have two things I want you to do. Number one, chase a parked car. And number two, I want you to find Mountain Dew and climb it. All right. Mountain ranges can also be created under the ocean. The one way this occurs is instead of forcing the ground up, those two plates actually split apart. So remember, if there's a spot on Earth where the plates are coming together and smashing, you would think that would leave gaps, wouldn't you? And so when places are moving apart, in the ocean we call that could be a trench, or that could allow lava from the Earth's core to erupt out of that gap. And once it cools down, it creates mountains, which also create islands. If you look at the Aleutian Islands in Alaska or the Hawaiian Islands in the Pacific, if you look at the there's a line. Look on the map and you'll see kind of a line. You'll see where that fault line is, where land actually was splitting from plate tectonics were shifting away and allowing lava to come up and then cool off and form land. And of course, over time, when you get wind and other types of rain and silt and things like that washing up on these rocks, you'll start getting soil where you can grow things, and allows people to eventually farm. But that does not happen overnight. That takes time. Okay. How mountains are formed. The Mid-Atlantic, now this is an example of mountains. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and you can see that on the map. It looks like a blue swirl in the middle between Africa, South America, North America, Europe. There's a swirl on the map. It's kind of a lighter blue. It runs along the Atlantic Ocean floor from North America past the southern tip of Africa. That's an awfully long stretch, a ridge, an underwater mountain ridge. It's 10,000 miles long, approximately, and it rises anywhere from a mile to 2.5 miles above the sea floor. Now, it still doesn't reach. That's the thing. It still doesn't reach the top of the water in a lot of places. In some places, it's probably poked through. In Iceland, it means that you're able to walk along it. And so, like I said, in some places it hasn't reached the water, its surface. In others it has. Iceland, you can walk along it because what'll happen is it's obviously cold in Iceland. And so you get a freezing effect from the water, and it actually helps you form some land. Isn't this exciting? More about how mountains are formed. Usually, other mountains, usually those that stand on their own, are created by ancient volcanoes. So there's Ben Nevis in Scotland, was once a very active volcano long, long ago. It last erupted millions of years ago, and the eruption was so violent that it caved in on itself. In the United States, we've had mountains that have become volcanoes. If you go into Washington, Mount St. Helens, that happened not that long ago. I mean, it might seem like a long time ago, but about 40 years ago. And it did a lot of damage. So with that said, there's a lot of features of mountains that we can go and we can check out. We can see that land shifting, land smashing into one another, volcanic eruptions can form mountains. And mountains typically it's not just a single feature. There will be many mountains within what we call a range. And so you should be able to talk now about how a mountain is formed and say, yeah, it could be a volcano, could be land smashing in against one another, or land splitting apart and allowing lava to escape. And then you should be able to talk about features of a mountain where the top is called a peak, and they have to be at least over 2,000 feet high, and that's above sea level. Okay. And then you should be able to just simply talk about what is a mountain. And if we talk about what is a mountain, we obviously know they have peaks. They're steeper than and higher than hills. And if you they're in groups, and we call them a range. So, all right. Well, thanks for watching and listening. I appreciate the time. If you have any questions, be sure to ask your teachers about those. And I think I do want to leave you with one more joke because I know you love these jokes. Okay. Why did Sean suddenly fly to Mount Everest, leaving behind friends and family and food? Somebody told him she'll be coming around the mountain. What? That doesn't even make sense. Okay, that's off the internet. And I just want to say sometimes the internet is very disappointing. Just letting you know that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have yourself a great day.